This is the morning meeting. Sean, Dan, and I are here to walk you through the day, tell you what we think about stuff, and then take your questions. If you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand if you'd like to get in on the conversation. We've already had quite a few new people this week. Let's keep the new people ball rolling. Raise your hand if you've never been on this program before. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're watching on X or on YouTube, go listen to the Elvis Costello song, What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. Some consider it a Nick Lowe song, I know. And let that guide your spirit as you put stuff in the chat, which should not be it's smackable at all. Thank you for joining us. The president has two weird things on his schedule today. But before I show you that, let's look at the White House pool. Sean, the new media is Frontlines. What you got on Frontlines?
This is a first, Mark. I am unprepared.
All right. Somebody Google, put in the somebody Google.
I'm embarrassed. I'm turning in my badge.
That's okay. That's all right. You're busy. You're busy today, which we'll get to in a moment. Noon. Here's the president's schedule. Noon, a swearing-in ceremony for the ambassador to the French Republic and the Principality of Monaco. Perfectly reasonable event. Closed press. Sean,
who is the French ambassador to be? We need to say Jared Kushner's father.
No. This is Jared Kushner's father. Yes.
Yeah, Charles.
Sean, the president's a busy guy. Sometimes literally heads of state or heads of government come to the United States and they don't get a meeting with the president. Why is the president having lunch with the chief of army staff of Pakistan? Why does that guy get a lunch?
I got to imagine that there's something to, I would guess off the top of my head that has to do with Afghanistan more than anything else and sort of regional conflicts and staging but that it's a great question. I mean, that doesn't even rate the Secretary of Defense. That would usually be like the Army Chief of Staff of the U.S.
Yeah, like I think if the Prime Minister of Pakistan wanted to come have lunch with the president would be like, sorry, got some fish to fry. So who knows? Now, could it have to do with Pakistan maybe giving Iran some nuclear material? I don't know. But
there's staging possibilities as well. Like, what do we need? Is there some kind of staging that we need out of Pakistan?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of possibilities.
I guess, but let them have lunch with like Marco Rubio. I think it's a little weird, and I don't even know why they're announcing it. But
that's the key, Mark. Right. So the issue that you're raising is the bigger one, which is why, if you're going to do this, they don't need to announce every lunch and visitor. That happens all the time. They're doing it for a reason, and there's somebody that they're trying to send a signal to.
Yeah, or they're trying to suck up the Pakistanis for some reason. But again, it's a little odd, and he's the president of the United States. I see nothing. I Googled, I saw nothing explaining this. So we'll stay on that. During this program, 9:30, the Secretary of Defense and the chair of the Joint Chiefs, Sean's friend Dan Kane, a.k.a. Raisin Kane, a.k.a. General Kane, are testifying Armed Services Committee on their budget request. We'll dip into that if something interesting is occurring. House is out, Republican and Democrat separate meetings this morning. Chuck Schumer, another press conference, this time on reconciliation package at 10:15. The Judiciary Committee holds a hearing on the Biden cover-up. They're hearing from three people, two of whom I confess I've never heard of, and the third is Sean M. Spicer. Sean, do you have prepared remarks that you could preview exclusively for us?
They are right here.
Yeah, tell us what are some of the money
sound? A lot of banging.
You're
out of order, Mr. Chairman. You're out of order.
Why are you a witness on the topic of Biden acuity loss?
Because I am very skilled in the medical field. I've used Band-Aids before and took a first aid class when I was in a Boy Scout. They've asked me to testify for two reasons. Number one, to get a better understanding of the regular contact senior staff should have with the president. And secondly, to discuss the media coverage of President Trump's versus President Biden when it came to mental and physical acuity. So I will enumerate multiple circumstances in which legacy media outlets speculated without evidence on President Trump's mental and physical acuity. And yet those same outlets were silent during the entire Biden administration and show the contrast that was there. There may or may not be a couple pot shots at Karine Jean-Pierre. You'll have to live stream the thing, and we'll cover it tonight on my show as well.
Well, we look forward to it. And Dan and I are both going to now give you lines for free that you can use if you need it. Dan, you first.
Oh, please. Oh,
give
hold
Sean
on.
a line.
Get the pen.
Yeah, give Sean a line that he can use if he comes under fire. Any kind of generic line that you think works?
Oh,
well
sure. I mean, I don't recall, or would be a good one. If
all right, I
some
don't
uncomfortable
recall.
questions that could be asked. Yep.
Yeah. All right, ready? Congresswoman, you asked a question. I'm going to answer it. Senator. Sorry. Senator, you asked me a question. I'm going to answer it. Stop interrupting.
I like that one. Yeah.
All right.
There's a few on this. We did a little murder boarding on this, and you're right, because there's a few that we were like, it has a habit of interrupting the witness.
Mr. Chairman, I was asked a question. I think I'm entitled to answer it. This is America.
How about this one?
This is still America, isn't it, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, and then there's the always. I've got this one. It's actually, I'm pulling it out of my back pocket.
Yeah.
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth, Senator.
Yeah, that's a good one. That will work.
So you're going to stick to just the facts, is what you're telling me, Sean.
At some point, Vladimir Putin today is taking questions from international journalists at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. That ought to be interesting. Housing start numbers came out a little while ago. I don't know what they were. The Fed makes their interest rates decision at 2, and then Powell has his press conference at 2:30. Supreme Court decisions expected at 10, a little early in the end game here to expect the biggies, but who knows? So look forward to that.
That's the, we talked about this last week. If you think about a week ago, Abrego Garcia, he's coming back, all this stuff. We're in the rearview mirror. Then we go into LA riots. Then now Iran. I mean, so these next stories, and the question is, you got a Supreme Court case on birthright citizenship. You've got all these other things. Is there something potentially that could push this? I don't think so. But there's a lot of big stories that are going to come out over the next, the court has about 10 big cases that have to get decided. Are any of them going to rise to the level of getting attention?
All right. Let's get to the news. I was going to start by making fun of the media, but since we just talked about a bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with World War III, I've lost the high ground. But I'll make this recommendation again. If you don't have YouTube television, you're making a horrible mistake. It's the best way to watch linear TV. And they now have on the iPad a quad split. So you can watch ABC, CNN.
When you say on the iPad, you have to watch it on the iPad?
The quad split does not exist on the iPhone, but it does exist on the iPad.
Okay.
So
all right, that's a good pro tip.
So there's Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and the fourth one they fill with BBC. And you can talk, you just double tap and the audio jumps around. It's spectacular. So I'm watching at the gym this morning thinking, well, I'm gonna catch up on World War III before we start. So here's what they're covering. MSNBC is covering, apparently there's something called the NHL hockey something. There's a team from Florida that won the Stanley Cup. Fox is covering the Idaho murder trial. CNN, most trusted name in news, is covering the Karen Reed jury deliberations. And BBC was covering Ukraine. At least that's a news story. Anyway.
By the way, can I make one point here, Mark? I still don't know what the Karen Reed. I don't know if I just tune it out.
You and I both. We're going to get through the verdict without ever knowing. She ran somebody over, her husband or somebody.
It's a cop, right?
Anyway, I don't know. In any event, I'm kind of amazed the world is not transfixed here. President Trump continues to deliberate. They've widely put out, I wouldn't even call it a leak. They're just telling people he's thinking about doing this. And what this is unknown. I hope there are people staking out the base in Missouri where the B-52s would leave from, because that would be a good tell. But he faces this decision. The main thing that's happened overnight is the Iranians, both the Ayatollah and their UN ambassador, have come out and defiantly said, do not threaten us, Mr. President. Here is CNN reporting on the Ayatollah's statement. 103, please.
This threat let the Americans know that the Iranian nation is not one to surrender, and any military invention on their part will undoubtedly result in irreparable damage. His remarks come.
Okay. Here's more.
By the way, last night he puts out this statement that we're going to rain all sorts of craziness in the next 24 hours, and nothing happened. I thought that was a big mistake tactically. If you're going to start telling people that you can do stuff and you don't do it, I mean, they fired 10 missiles. I think that doesn't that undermines their credibility going forward. So I think in fact, I would look at, if I were President Trump, and go, all right, if that's their idea of a threat.
Yeah. Although you could say the same thing about the president if he doesn't drop bombs on them. All right, just a couple of things more from the Ayatollah. 104, please. This is one of the tweets. The U.S. president threatens us with his absurd rhetoric. He demands that the Iranian people surrender to him. They should make threats against those who are afraid of being threatened. The Iranian nation isn't frightened by such threats. And one more from the Ayatollah, number 105. Obvious reference to the Cheap Trick song. It is wise to tell the Iranian nation to surrender. What should the Iranian nation surrender to? We will never surrender. That's the Cheap Trick reference. In response to the attacks of anyone. This is the logic of the Iranian nation. This is the spirit of the Iranian nation. Dan, does President Trump have any option now but to go forward with helping Israel destroy Iran's nuclear program?
I don't see how, but I actually read those tweets as somewhat good news because he is not threatening to respond. He's saying there'll be irreparable damage to what, our relationship? Okay. Like, I actually wonder if he is signaling we are not going to hit back. Like, if there's a shadow war, you're going to take out Fedora, but don't go any further. Don't decapitate the leadership. Like, we won't do anything. I don't know how Trump backs down now. I think Netanyahu and the Israelis would freak out. I think they would absolutely lean in as hard as they could to try to pressure him. But I think Trump and J.D. Vance are appropriately nervous because both of them rose on being against forever wars, and they are staring a new one in the face.
Sean, I totally disagree respectfully with Dan. I think it's easy. It's not a forever war. You give a speech and you say, I've made it clear, my solemn pledge to all the American people is they can never have a nuclear program. Israel's done a great start at destroying it, but they need our help. This mission is not about the Iranian government. That's up for the Iranian people to decide. It is a limited mission that was launched, 24 hours ago, secretly, to destroy a nuclear program. The Iranians have cheated. They can't have these weapons. Thank you very much. No troops on the ground. Good night. Good luck. Iranian people, we love you. Do the right thing.
I think the problem, and Dan brought this up yesterday, is then what, right? So first of all, I'm not convinced that it is entirely limited to the big Buster bomb. Like, there are other tactical ways in which I think the U.S. could look at this, which would be less sort of shock and awe. But the big question that I think a lot in MAGA world are asking is, then what? Like, I get it.
Then they don't have a nuclear program.
But
right,
Mark, what if they hit one of our bases and 300 Marines are dead?
Then we decimate them.
Right, and I think everybody look.
And then what?
The issue. I from a situation room discussion standpoint, it goes, okay, what are our options? Boom, boom, boom. This is what we can do. Okay, got it. So everyone agrees to the tactics that we can use. But then the conversation immediately turns to then what? And I get, this is where I think Dan's right, which is the MAGA world is divided. When they're going to say, well, Mr. President, Israel is willing to go in and do this, and the Saudis are willing to do this. And he says, yeah, but if this doesn't go right, and they do this, this, and this, and there's enough people in his ear that are telling him, there's other possibilities that we may own this thing, and you're gonna get yourself into another Iraq, another Vietnam. I think this is the problem, that he can get himself over the first decision, like most people. I don't think I think that if you look at the divide in MAGA world, there's less of a divide about taking out the nukes or their capabilities rather, and then there's a bigger threshold question of then what?
Then nothing. This is what's look, Dan. Iran could take the part of the reason this needs to be done is Iran could do that today. They could attack an American military base today.
Why haven't they?
Well, they've attacked Israel.
But
they
Mark,
for whatever reason.
But there needs to be. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, look, we can't let them continue to have their capability. They don't seem to be serious about negotiating. This president, you talk about fighting with MAGA. If he does a deal that's not airtight, that would be bad politically for him too. You talk about Vietnam, you talk about Iraq. He's not going to put Americans on the ground.
But Mark,
it's just there's no endless war here. Yes, sir.
Well, but I think you are painting a rosy picture, which is there won't be any troops, there won't be any money. There won't. But hold on a second.
But there won't be. It's not a rosy picture. There won't be.
But there.
You know what the funny part is? The funny part is I'm with Dan on this. I actually think
I accept that the bombing could cause chaos and bloodshed throughout the country. I accept it. But I don't accept letting them continue to be the #1 exporter of terror and moving towards building a nuclear weapon. Sean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think this is where, hold on, can I just get some agreement on this? Can we all agree, and Dan, because I don't think any of us disagree with the threat that Iran poses and the idea that they should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have nuclear enrichment capabilities. But the bigger question that I still can't get my head around, and I know that there is competing arguments in the White House, is then what? What do we own when this is done? And do we find ourselves in a situation, because it's not like you drop the bomb and then go, all right, we'll see you guys in a bit. There's going to be,
why not? Why not?
Well, because you can't walk away. Because if the Ayatollah stays in command, he will retaliate, and
Israel will kill him.
Activate sleeper cells.
Israel's going to kill him.
But Mark, I think something that has to be put on the table, and this is not Dan Turrentine's personal opinion or the Democratic Party's opinion, but reading politics and reading polls and having dealt with this stuff now for years, there are a lot of Americans who say Iran is not a direct threat to the United States. Iran is a direct threat to Israel, and Israel is our friend. But you got to be careful saying that there's a huge threat to the United States.
There is. They're developing intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Okay, but they're not there yet to reach us.
Right, but this is the time to stop them before they're there to reach us.
But you know what, though, Mark? Again, and this is not my personal view, but there are tens of millions who feel like it's just like with the Ukraine war, not a direct threat to us, right? It could become one, but it's not. And so when you say, well, Israel will take out the government, Israel will do this, who supplies Israel with most of their stuff?
The United States. That's why the Ayatollah, if he's serious that the U.S. shouldn't get involved, he should be attacking U.S. military bases now, because we're heavily involved already.
There's two other things that we're not mentioning. One is thing Russia and one is thing China. And the issue is that maintaining that balance between not provoking them to come to Iran's defense right now, because this is, again, the balance that has to exist, and no one knows those X factors. You see Chairman Xi talking about we need to take the temperature. I mean, like, I don't know what back channels they're doing with him, but we've got to make sure that we don't. These things have a way of escalating. I am a believer. I'm with you, Mark, on the idea that, to me, Iran poses an existential threat, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next week. It doesn't matter. If you have the opportunity, you take them out. Take the shot. Go. But we need to be very, very aware of what happens next. And that, I think, is what the president is faced with right now. And there's competing views on how to make that. I'll
also just say this. Trump likes to be on the side of victory. He loves to be with the hot thing, right? So now he's claiming we own the air and like all this stuff that is just factually not true, right? Because he likes to project strength and victory. I'm sure what is making him nervous is, if this goes sideways, I own the whole thing. I cannot blame anybody else. No one dragged. I mean, he can go after Netanyahu, but like, good luck with that.
We know very little about who's taking what positions internally. But we do know that the White House is telling everybody who will listen. Some of it came from the Europeans and the Israelis, but the administration officials are telling everybody the president is considering this. I call it the mother of all trial balloons. The reaction, I think, has been, if you're trying to see what the traffic will bear, I think the reaction's been pretty good, with the exception of the Ayatollah and a few members of Congress. I don't hear a huge outcry around.
I mean, there's been one poll that shows 85% of Americans against this.
It depends on how you ask it. I find the polls on this to be silly.
You know, we try to be forward looking on this. So let me just inject this. I think that I've never seen the president so decisive on his resolve and commitment to address an issue. A lot of times he talks about both sides, and I'm hearing from this, whatever. He has reputed Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson, and others, and been very clear about Iran's capability and the need. And then his truth socials have only gotten stronger. There is rarely a situation, especially on foreign policy, where the president has exhibited this kind of strength and fortitude. I think that, look, if I were Iran, they need to understand that if you study President Trump and look at the arc of how he where an argument goes. This to me is at a 9 of a 10 and saying, so if they have any hope of dialing this thing back, I would be sending, fruit baskets his way quick, because the statements from the Ayatollah are not going to take this temperature down. And I think if anything, strengthen his resolve. And the president's going to say he doesn't want a deal. That's the key. He doesn't want a deal, and he's going to take this guy out.
I agree. And I don't know how they back off now. Not just because Paul Gigot says they can't back off, but they're just too out there. I don't know what excuse he would give, because he said unless Iran surrenders, I don't see an out. All right, 2 more things on this story. Then we're going to cover a couple other things, and then we're going to go to your questions and comments. So if you're here on the two-way platform and you want the honor of a lifetime to talk to Sean and Dan, please raise your hand and you'll have that opportunity.
Also, real quick, from a sponsorship standpoint, I know we got to do this on the fly. If you want to sponsor this show right now, I will ask your question in the United States Senate today as well. So go to Mark. What's the link? Because we got to do this on the fly. If you sponsor the show, in the middle of my testimony, I will spurt out your product and just say, on behalf of the two-way community, there you go. Sponsors at twoway.tv. Just say what you want.
You got to act now.
You got to act now. And it's got to be, this is bigger than Mark getting tickets at whatever game he goes to. Like, I want to see something real. And I will, in the middle of the thing, talk about your sneakers or whatever, and just say, Chairman, can I pause for a moment to eat, to drink this drink or whatever? But you'll get it. It's huge.
Make Donald Trump proud.
Product placement. All right. Serious up for a moment. This is 110, please. It's a picture of a little girl, 7-year-old girl, Nastia Borek, who the Israelis say was killed by an Iranian missile in a residential building in Israel. 7-year-old Ukrainian girl who came to Israel from Odessa to receive life-saving treatment at one of Israel's best hospitals. Getting a lot of coverage in Israel today, as you can imagine. Horrible story about her being killed, and that's going to get attention. And I wouldn't be surprised if the president did take action if he talked about that. Now, on the matter of Ukraine and Israel, as we've talked about the last couple of days, or not Ukraine and Israel and Iran, there's a division amongst Trump supporters about whether it's a good idea or not. 2 very, very smart people sat down yesterday to discuss this. Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, and Tucker Carlson. Both are hosts of shows. When I saw that they were talking together, I wondered on whose show it was, but it was on Tucker's show. And Ted Cruz, who went to an Ivy League college, very bright guy, worked on the Bush campaign in 2000, decided to go talk to Tucker. And I don't know what he was expecting, but this is what he got.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
Dan, 2-part question. What's your forward-looking lesson from that exchange? And second, what year was Fenway Park built? Wait, you're going to come on this show without knowing what year Fenway Park was built? Are you
Mets
serious?
fan.
Are you serious?
I take pride in not knowing
You think you can come tell people your views of American government and politics without knowing what year Fenway Park was built? Disgusting. Outrageous. It's a joke. Just a joke. All right, Dan, what's your forward-looking lesson from that exchange?
One, be prepared if you're going to go on Tucker Carlson and you're going to go on certain podcasts and with certain people who are pretty animated about this. That was remarkable. You don't see that very often because usually stuff's pre-baked and you know the audience. It's usually friendly, and if it's hostile, you have a game plan to kind of deflect. But look, I said this yesterday. Before we went into Iraq, after 9/11, you had months of public debate about this stuff. This is happening so fast, and I think half the public doesn't even really believe it really means very much, to your point earlier, Mark, that like they're covering all these other things. It's just kind of not like a big deal. So it's remarkable. I think you're going to see more of this.
All right, Sean, let's do some of my favorite thing we do on the show, role play. You play Sean Spicer. I'm Ted Cruz. Ready? Ring. Hey, Sean, do you see my interview with Tucker?
I did.
What'd you think?
Wait, who are you?
It's Senator Cruz, Ted Cruz. How'd I do? What'd you think?
Hey, Senator, this isn't a good time. I'm in the middle of something right now.
Got it. Just give me the headline. How'd I do?
I know. Hold on a second. I've got a call. I think Dan Turrentine's on the other line. Let me do this. I'll call you right back. Is that okay?
Okay, but definitely call me back because I want to know.
Yeah. Don't worry. If you don't hear from me, it's just I got bad cell service. All
right, Sean. What would you tell him for real?
Well, first of all, just as a reminder, Senator Cruz is on the Judiciary Committee, so I need to be very careful because I'm about to face him in 45 minutes.
Give him my best.
I will. So a couple things. I actually, this harkens back to when I first started in campaigns, and when you're getting ready for a debate, you'd always say, what's the price of a gallon of milk? You need to have a sense of what voters are facing. And even those were BS questions because you know what? I mean, like I buy milk all the time because I'm told to. My wife will say, go buy a gallon of milk. Here's exactly what you need to buy. 1%.
Coconut or almond?
Well, I buy the regular. She buys coconut, but I'm sorry, I can't.
Almond.
But the broader point is that like, I think that to your, play with Dan a little, this was a setup. They knew that. I mean, the population of the United States, we all live here. What is it? 319 million or something. I mean, like, what's the national debt? 37. I mean, like, you can do this with anybody. It was a setup. And I kept thinking to myself as I watched this, it was like reminiscent of my press conferences where I would look like an angry leprechaun because somebody would be like, I know how to turn your, I know how to exactly hit where you want to go. I think rightly so. First of all, I think that Ted Cruz isn't just a smart guy. He's a master debater. And I think he is like an award-winning one. It's not just like he has proven himself very, very strong on the debate stage. Not just like political, but like, in terms of like Toastmasters.
Going back to his Harvard Law days.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that the problem is sometimes when you're with somebody that you consider friendly or on your side, you let your guard down a little bit. And they did this interview to probably have a serious policy debate. And that's where I thought it probably went awry. But it's funny. I put this out on you did one of my famous Spicer Twitter polls. Which TC are you with? We're now over 16,000 votes. 75% are with Tucker. And I think it's a worthy debate. But I also think that like boiling it down to whether or not you know the population or not is not a fair question. I mean, that's to me, as Bryce Harper said, that's a clown question, bro.
Yeah. I got two more things to say. One's a question to Dan, and then we're going to go to your question. So please raise your hand. First, Dan, the person who does this regularly, the host who does it regularly is Hugh Hewitt. He asks his guests if they can name the three legs of the nuclear triad. Dan, what are the three legs of the nuclear triad?
I have no idea.
Don't go on Hugh Hewitt, dude, till you Google that.
Not only that, but to your point, Mark, when you go on Hugh Hewitt, it's not just a question like that. He'll talk about like the origins of the Quds Force. Like if you don't, I remember at one point early in my career, I said to my boss, oh, guess what? I got us booked on this particular show. And he looked at me and said, why? And I thought as a press secretary, it was pretty cool to get on the show. Like I thought, and my boss was like, dude, that's a recipe for disaster. And sometimes it was a reminder to me that I've carried with me going forward that think about why you're doing what you're doing, right? So, I mentioned before, there's various tactics, but what's the strategy? What are you trying to accomplish? And too many people, when I do trainings for media trainings, I always joke that I said, don't put the secretary in press secretary. And what I mean by that is when you pick up the phone, it's like, hi, this is the Washington Post. Can we talk to your boss? And you go, yeah, boss, the Washington Post is on the phone. That's the job of a secretary. That's not the job of a press secretary. He says, what do you want to talk about? Why my boss? What have you written about this before? What are we going to be doing to add to this story? Is it worth our time? Is it smart to be part of this? And I think sometimes the reflexive nature of people is to say, sure, I'll go on Tucker, or I'll go testify, or I'll go do this, and not think through, what am I getting out of it? What are the forces against me? What am I going to face, and how am I going to do this? Again, if everybody watches that right now and says, is it smart to go on Tucker? You better be willing to do a day of wargaming and murder boarding of that to say, is it smart?
I went on Tucker for 3 hours. I didn't prepare.
Yeah, but he's not. But to be fair,
just kidding. Just kidding. I was kidding.
First of all, that would be a first. I would be shocked if Mark Halperin didn't prepare for walking down the street the way I know you. So
I didn't prepare. The three legs.
You did wear
the three legs.
Sometimes take the compliment.
All right, thank you for that. The three legs of the nuclear triad are land, sea, and air. Now, stipulating one more topic after this, and then your questions. Stipulating that I like Ted Cruz. I've known him since the Bush campaign in 2000. I think he's a great guy. I think he gets a bad rap. I think he's funny, interesting. He's a great dad, etc. But this is the best Ted Cruz joke, and it's a riddle. Dan, I'm going to give it to you. Why do people in Washington always take an instant dislike to Ted Cruz?
Why?
In order to save time. It's one of my favorite Ted Cruz jokes. All right. Lastly, Sean, tell everybody who Sergio Gor is.
Sergio Gor is currently the assistant to the president and director of presidential personnel. That's the person that literally decides if you want a job in the president's administration, you want to serve on a board or commission, or be the secretary of anything, you have to go through Sergio Gor and his team. They vet people. Yeah. They do whatever. He's been a longtime confidant of Don Jr. Yes. He worked for Rand Paul for ages and kind of handled all of his comms and strategy.
Yep. And he also
jail briefly, didn't he? During the
that was another.
No, you're thinking of somebody else.
Yes.
So Sergio, as Sean said, very close to Don Jr. Started a publishing company with Don and published at least one of the president's books. So he is and like most people who get the job of presidential personnel, he's very close to the president. Somebody decided they didn't want Sergio to thrive. This is a New York Post headline, 107. Now, I've told you this before. When you see, quote unquote, investigative exclusives, particularly in the New York Post, the finest newspaper in America, and I mean that, don't think that Steve Nelson and Diana Glebova woke up and said, let's devote a lot of shoe leather to break in the story of Sergio's not being vetted, which is what this story is about, that he has not submitted the paperwork required of the people he's hiring yet. They didn't wake up and decide to investigate it. Somebody who wants to do damage to Sergio went to the New York Post, who will publish stories like this without, I would say, tons and tons of due diligence. Sean, who is after Sergio?
I know the answer to this question, so I want to hear. Can I pass and come back? I just want to hear
because you don't want to name the richest man.
No.
in the world?
Oh, you took my name, Elon Musk, 100%.
No, it's not Elon.
Musk took out his NASA guy. Musk kicked him in the ass on the way out.
Dan and I think it's Elon. Who do you think it is?
I think it's NSC holdovers.
Interesting.
Oh, not interesting. Just think about this.
Yeah.
It was Sergio that walked Laura Loomer into the Oval Office to take out the NSC staff.
Yes, it was.
Right? Who do you think knows about national security matters, of which an SF-86 kind of is relevant to?
All right. Well, we'll get to the bottom
connected.
of it. Yes, that's good. We'll get to the bottom of it. All right. Time for your questions. If you've got one, please raise your hand as you come in. We'll ask you to unmute, and then, and only then, will we ask you to tell us where you are coming to us from today, what is on your mind, and anything else you'd like to say. And we start with the good doctor. Dr. Simon, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Oh, you're muted, doctor. Nope.
This is an awesome show. You guys are the best on TV, podcasts, anything. The way you interact, especially you, Dan. Sean, if you're gonna, Sean, if you're going before Congress today, I testified and was in debates on 2 different campaigns where I got my butt kicked. But I noted in 21, 22, 23, Biden had memory loss, difficulty with tasks, challenges with problem solving, confusion, visual and spatial difficulty, walking, remember all the different times he turned, mood changes, irritation, write it down, memory loss, difficulty with tasks, challenge with problem solving, confusion, visual and spatial difficulties, and mood changes. Classic. You could tell every time he was before the American public that he was demented. And I'm on record stating that he had moderate to severe dementia, even back in 22.
What kind of doctor are you?
I am a trauma surgeon, general surgeon, intensive care unit guy. Yeah. Ran a major trauma center for years.
Yeah.
Evaluated patients like this.
Right.
Almost.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
The president gets the best medical care in the world, we're told. You saw it. All of us have talked to many doctors who saw the same thing. How could his doctor not have seen it?
Well, the other thing I've been is one of the busiest med legal docs for plaintiffs in the country for years. This is absolute medical negligence.
But how could his doctor? Answer my question if you would, though. How could his doctor not see it?
Oh, they saw it.
So that's actually my question. Is there a doctor-patient confidentiality that if Dr. O'Connor saw this decline, he was, where is the line between, I mean, I would assume that his answer, if he were asked this question, would say, if in fact I did see anything which I can't confirm or deny, I would be bound by doctor-patient confidentiality from discussing any of that. Is that a fair, or am I wrong on that?
No, you're right. That's very fair. The HIPAA, HIPAA goes across all lines, but then you get into where the president is in the 25th Amendment.
Well, but there's that. But there's also the fact that he filled out. He wrote a letter every year saying he's fit to serve.
That's why I say this is gross medical negligence.
Well, it's an abuse of the public trust. If you're right, if any doctor could see it with their plain eyes, don't even need to have him as a patient. It's a gross abuse of the public trust. And of course, as we've said here many times, it's also a professional malpractice on the part of the media, because how often did they seek out doctors like you? Not that often.
Well, also a question of whether those statements were edited by the political team.
So I want to just, since Mark started a role-playing episode, let's just play this out for a second. Okay. I'm Kamala Harris. I come to you and I cackle and I say, Dr. Simon, I'm worried about the president, whether he's fit to serve. I don't know whether to invoke the 25th Amendment. What can you tell me about his fitness to serve? What could you respond to me?
I could easily respond to you data points, which I just gave you.
Well, but besides observational, are there tests that could be given to demonstrate with
science? Sure. You could do an MRI. You could see brain changes, which you do see. You see it with CTE. You see it with Alzheimer's disease. Even with dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the axons and part of the, I'm not going to get real specific because I'm not a neurologist, but there's distinct changes that go on in the brain.
Yeah.
But when you're evaluating somebody, whether they're competent or not, and you have to do that as a physician, you're going to do it based upon history and what's been going on and the progression given to you by the patient and the family. And then you're going to do a physical examination. Now, we've been able, with Joe Biden, be able to look at him on TV multiple times. And you all know, everybody knew, the general public knew. And then he was hidden, and the somnolence and the inability to stay awake at international meetings, all of these things you put together, bingo.
Yeah.
You've got a diagnosis, and that's how you diagnose things. If you want to go to the next thing, which is radio imaging, you can. But from a clinical standpoint, Joe Biden, without question, showed dementia.
Doctor, thank you. Grateful to you for coming in. Appreciate it. Wish you'd had a line to the president's doctor in real time. Bella, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
So here I am from the lovely city of Netanya in Israel. And I have some questions I know Americans feel like they're not part of the world because they're so far away, but it's not true. So if the Iranians ended up with nuclears, so the Saudis would, why the Egyptians wouldn't? The Jordanians, this is a very unstable area. And the idea that Americans think it doesn't affect them if a regime that is religious in the way it's religious and with the kind of ideas of how the world should be organized, with what the missiles that they send now and the intercontinental missiles with nuclear warheads, you're there, folks. America's distance from Europe and all the other continents, except for Mexico and Canada. You're right in the mix. The world, as some New York Times guy wrote, the world's flat. I won't mention his name because I don't like him, but the world is flat, and America is part of the world. And if you think it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, you can't think 2 months down the line. You have to think, where's the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan? That's how North Korea got weapons. That's how Pakistan have weapons. To our good fortune, India has a weapon, so Pakistan is worried about India's weapons. So the North Koreans don't have a global agenda. So I guess they're keeping their weapons to protect themselves or to just push the envelope here and there. But the Iranians have an agenda. And the big Satan, the little Satan, we're all on it, folks.
Yeah. All right, Bella, thank you for that. Let's let Dan respond to what you said so far. Dan.
So Bella, I completely agree with you. And I want to say this based on, I'm seeing it on the chat and stuff. I'm not arguing that we should not. What I'm kind of posing is the politics of this, just like when I was saying we should defend Ukraine, right? I heard both qualitative, quantitative data, my fellow hosts and others say the American people are not there. And part of the challenge globally right now is there is an inward looking trend line amongst a lot of major countries in this world. It's why so much of Europe is anti-immigration right now, right? They feel like people have come in, Brexit, they feel like they're tired of trying to kind of have the open borders of commerce and trade and all these different things. I don't particularly, I disagree with a lot of that, but I respect that tens of millions of my countrymen feel this way. And it's not just MAGA. One of the most jarring things for me was during the campaign when Kamala Harris went on Charlemagne the God and was taking questions primarily from African Americans. And a woman calls in from Detroit and says, why is our money going to Ukraine when we have bad drinking water in Flint and so many problems at home? And one of the biggest applause lines for John Kerry's 2004 campaign was, we need to rebuild firehouses in Ohio, not new ones in Baghdad. And people went nuts. The Democrats did. So while I agree with you that we have interests all over the world and exactly as you laid out, I respect that a lot of people here feel differently.
Yeah, I just say I think it's a very I like the way you frame this. At the end of the day, Bella, when you make it very clear that you want to destroy America, whether it's tomorrow or in 5 years, if we have an opportunity to blunt that, we should take it.
And by the way, somebody, Michael Graham, I think, pointed out, Iran killed several Americans in Iraq. Thousands. Those IEDs were Iranian.
Yep. We got one good sponsorship inquiry, Sean. I'm not sure we'll have it locked up by your testimony, but thank you for that. Bella, thank you. Appreciate it. Please stay safe. Elmac, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind.
How's it going, Mark? It's Lee. I'm in New Jersey and just wanted to ask, what are the chances that the Ayatollah just head off to Russia like the Syrian regime did?
Yeah. Good question, Lee. Sean?
Great question.
We're looking for an Ayatollah field trip?
That would be victory. I mean, if
Pakistan, maybe tries meeting with the Army Chief of Staff.
I mean, look, anything's possible, but I think that would be, to me, that's a pretty close win. If he bolts, that would definitely, in my mind, and I admittedly not the biggest Iran expert. I don't want Tucker coming after me here, but I will say that I got to imagine that would inspire the Iranian people to rise up if they saw the leader bolt.
Yeah, Sean, how many counties are there in Iran?
Well, you have one on the border of Iraq that's so I think you're at 17 if you count that one that's right on the northwest corner, but there's some controversy about that.
There's Montgomery, PG.
Yeah.
Dan, do you expect the Ayatollah to flee?
No, but it's possible. I mean, I think it's a great question because it would go to then, would he ride off into the sunset? Or would he attempt to foment, some sort of comeback from the outside? And would the Russians potentially cause some mischief the way we did for them in Afghanistan? Would they try to bog us down with the Israelis with fomenting dissent in Iran? Would the Chinese do that?
I'll tell you again what I want to see, and not just American. I want to see Iranians, Iranian Americans, Iranians in England, Iranians in Egypt. I want to see Iranian successful business people from around the country come on two-way and basically hold a press conference and say, we will help rebuild our country of our ancestors. We will support you as you transition away from a repressive regime. That kind of international support, not from a government, but from Iranians who have left the country, I think would be fantastic. So I'm working on that.
By the way, I
know one prominent one here in New York City that's on here a lot.
Correct.
I see him enter it. Correct. I won't call him out, but
correct. All right, Lee. Thank you.
Democrat.
Thank you. I agree. He's on my mind, but so is there's so many folks in Silicon Valley. Let's listen to the Secretary of Defense for just a bit on Capitol Hill.
Achieve peace through strength. I'd like to start by thanking this committee and Congress for your bipartisan leadership to give our troops a big pay raise in 2025. That includes an additional 10% raise for our junior enlisted service members, E1 and 4. Thank you for supporting our initiatives that improve quality of life for our warriors and their families. Things that include making historic investments. This budget makes historic investments in living conditions, in barracks, in base housing. This budget reforms the PCS process to reduce the cost and stress of moves for families. We've already seen changes there. And we improve the quality of care provided by our defense healthcare system. The best part of my job is meeting and interacting with troops and their families. We hear their concerns. We know what it's like to face these challenges. I've been there recently. Each of these initiatives responds to feedback that we've gotten from the force. We are listening, and we are always looking for ways to improve quality of life for those who serve. Under President Trump's leadership, this budget
we'll keep monitoring this
America
and see if they start talking
and
about Iran, and we'll bring
the
Secretary back on if that happens. Thank you for that.
$161.6 billion budget
Chad,
request.
welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Sean and Dan.
Thanks for having me on. Love the show. I this weekend when everything was going down, I was like, sure wish there was a weekend morning meeting. Couldn't wait till Monday. But I just wanted to, I don't know if it's a question as much as it is a comment. I really appreciated I think Bella was her name earlier, what she was saying. I will never understand all of the MAGA, America first, whatever, that act like this isn't putting America first if we do end the nuclear ambitions of Iran. That is putting America first. It's putting the world first. We have Hegseth on the Hill today talking about the budget. We put a lot of money in defense, a ton, probably more than anybody in the world. What's the point of doing that if we don't show America's might? And, the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, show them, look, you're not going to do this. You're not going to move forward with this. So I don't understand what's more America first than protecting the world. And do we need 9/11 to happen to get involved? Do we need that to happen first before we say, yes, now we do something about it? The whole point is never let that happen again, or something worse happen again. That's putting America first. And I don't know, the Tucker Carlsons, those folks, that part of the world, I'll never understand it.
Chad, well said. You speak for tens of millions. Sean.
Yeah, not to steal a phrase that technically wasn't properly attributed to Monty Python, I think it was, but you never get, or The Princess Bride, my mistake there, but you never get into a land war in Asia. And that's, to me, what America First is all about, which is not, when we see a threat to America, we take it out, we isolate it, we take it out. The biggest issue I think that most America First people have had over the last couple decades is going into a war that is seemingly endless with not a long-term strategy. And so there's a big difference between an isolated and targeted strike. I mean, President Trump did this in Syria during the first term. There was no follow-on force. Their battle damage assessment was precise. This is the same kind of strategy that I hope and believe that the president will pursue now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chad, I totally agree with you. And I think Mark said it earlier. I think if the president's going to go, he's going to have, meaning forward with this, he's going to have to do some sort of address to the nation and tell Netanyahu explicitly, this is our support. Do not, if this goes sideways, do not call us, do not ask for our help. Yeah. I think the flip side to this is, and again, I agree with you, but the politics of this are that people were promised Iraq would be kind of quick and easy, right? And it turned out to not be. And it was not a lot of kids on the Upper East Side of Manhattan who served. And they certainly didn't serve 2, 3, and 4 tours of duty. They didn't, right? So some of the most vocal people against the forever wars and against involvement were in heavily military areas like South Carolina and Missouri, which is what Trump tapped into that no one knew was really bubbling up below the surface. So I think when you say take out an adversary, I think in a vacuum, people would say, of course. If you put a full risk assessment before the country and said, are we willing to mobilize again? And I know, Mark, you're saying we're not, but you have to consider it. And I'm sure Trump is. If things go sideways, do we still have an interest in the region? Sure, we do. Of course we do.
And in the
by the way, there's one thing that we have not touched on that I think is not lost on the NSC type folks, which is there is an economic impact when it comes to oil, and it can't just be, you're talking north of 30% of oil going through that strait. And so I know but you can't have a discussion where that doesn't come up at some point and say, how is this going to economically impact the country? Some people may not want to hear that, but it's part of a discussion that occurs.
Huge part of it. Chad, thank you so much. Grateful to you. Thanks for coming on. All right. Against my better judgment, I'm bringing in Duke. Duke, welcome in. Unmute. Don't ruin the show. I can mute you at any time.
Good morning.
Tell us where you are and what's on your mind.
I'm in Western North Carolina.
Okay.
And Iran has 500,000 troops. We can bust the bunker with our bunker busters, but then what happens with the 500,000 troops that they have on the ground?
Well, if they want to try to march into Israel, then Israel will kill them all with planes and missiles.
Okay.
I mean, it's not that complicated. They don't have any air. They don't have any air capability left, or very limited.
But
Israel does. Yeah. They don't have any allies. Russia's not offering to help them. Yes, Dan?
What if the Israelis put in a government, right? Kind of indirectly, they're flown in from somewhere. No. Fine. They rise up in Iran.
Correct.
But what if the 500,000 troops don't like that new government and turn on it?
Then it's up to the Iranian people who've tolerated living in a dictatorship and a theocracy to deal with it. Just to be clear, I hear you. The last 2 days,
devil's advocate.
Not just devil's advocate. I'm overstating the case. I am with Tucker Carlson to a large extent because I know history and I see what nightmare scenarios have developed when America has done things. But I'm also a student of history. No, the problem comes when you put Americans on the ground and when you try to shape the new government or you try to overthrow a government. Those things don't typically work, and I wouldn't advocate those things. But
we're not very good at it.
Yeah, we have no success at it. I mean, I'm amazed. I still talk to people who defend the Afghanistan presence. I mean, what did we get out of it? We spent a ton of money. We alienated a bunch of people. We left in disgrace. Now the Taliban's back in charge.
Yep. But can't you take that and what we're doing in Ukraine, which you have very eloquently talked about now for months and have been ahead of the curve on, which is there are no boots on the ground, but what we're doing is providing the money, what has turned into a stalemate, and which now after 4 years, the public is saying no mas. So if Iran goes through years of this and we're backdooring money through Israel into Iran to this government, at what point, Mark, then, if 5 or 10 years on in a region that has a history of this for 5,000 years, do we then say, what are we doing?
But because the president would say, if he's listening to me,
is that Cruz,
we're not
Harris?
All we're doing is eliminating their nuclear and missile program. That's it. That's the mission. That's what we're doing.
So that's what Bibi signed up for.
Can I?
We're not Israel, Sean.
The key phrase. I mean, you were joking, I know, but when you said if the president, if the president was listening to me, and on decisions like this, the key thing is who is the president listening to, and you've got the CENTCOM commander, you've got JD Tulsi, who he's publicly made clear what he believes of that.
We haven't even talked about that.
You got Rubio. I mean, my point is when you look at the people surrounding.
Hold on. Is this happening right now?
Yeah, 9:55 it says.
Sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
No, let's hear from him. I think that's more important.
Then if it lowered 2 points, I'd pay about 2 points less. And that's for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 5 years. It's hundreds of billions. It's even trillions of dollars that we're going to lose because of this too late. I call him too late pal because he's always too late. I mean, if you look at him, every time I did this, I was right 100%. He was wrong. Maybe I should go to the Fed. Am I allowed to appoint myself, Doug? I don't know. Am I allowed to appoint myself at the Fed? I do a much better job than these people. So anyway, we should be 2 points lower. It'd be nice to be 2.5 points lower. We'd be saving $800 billion, $700 billion. That's a lot of money, right? Think of it for nothing, for absolutely nothing. We'd save $800 billion. We have, I think we're 38th now in interest, and we should be number 1. We should be the lowest. But, and by the way, if he's worried about inflation, that's okay. I understand that. I don't think there's going to be any. So far, there hasn't. I mean, we have almost no inflation. We've done a great job. When I came in, we had a lot of inflation. We went through 4 years of the highest inflation in the history of our country with Sleepy Joe Biden. And Sleepy Joe. And he didn't know
Call him Sleepy Joe.
And so we had
I'm going to make that
the
note.
highest inflation we've ever had in the history of our country. And then it came down because when I got elected, it started dropping because people understood that I knew what I was doing. But now we have a man that just refuses to lower the Fed rate. Just refuses to do it.
All right,
And,
we got to end. So go ahead and
I don't even
wipe
think
the
he's
president
that
off the
I think
screen.
he hates me, but that's okay.
By the way, he is putting up 2 flagpoles right now.
Yes, yeah,
on the White House grounds.
Forgot to mention that.
The irony of like hitting interest rates high, but then bragging about inflation coming down. You can't make it up.
No.
You just can't make it up.
Not in classic economics. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Well, we're going to break down everything I do in the Senate today. So
right.
I'm going to just do a lot of recap because I have a feeling this could get fun.
All right, and
then we'll talk about the flagpoles, of course.
Okay, we'll do some recapping of that too on two-way tonight, and Larry will be joining us.
Oh, if I knew that.
Yeah, and maybe somebody else. All right, but earlier today, help me out, guys. Just start throwing promos up on the screen because I've had some problems. Noon Eastern Time. Citizen McCain, Megan's guest, Nikki Schwab, the chief campaign correspondent for the Daily Mail. That's today at noon Eastern Time. Watch it on the two-way platform to get your questions into Nikki and Megan, or stream it live or on demand on YouTube or X. And then tonight, after two-way tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Bridget Fedesi will be on. Bridget's Real America. And she'll be talking about therapy. Have you gotten it? Has it helped you? Has it hurt you? The topic of therapy with Bridget and the two-way community, 7 tonight. Again, you can watch it on this platform, or you can watch it on YouTube or X. Please join Bridget this evening. Noah and Paul, am I forgetting anything? Are we good?
We're good.
All right. If you've got SiriusXM now, you can turn right over in 4 minutes and hear me talking to Michael Smerconish, my regular Wednesday appearance. I will see some of you there. Thank you for watching. Thanks to everybody who raised their hand and participated. And the 3 of us will see you in 23 hours.
Wish me luck.
Right here.
Good luck, Sean. Yeah,
Sean,
go get him.
Mr. Chairman, I demand.
I'm going to be indignant.
Have a good day, everybody.
I see y'all.
As if you could be anything else, Sean. Come on.
It's